Chris, you were diagnosed with PTSD in
2016, when I was at my worst. We were almost to the point of divorce. I was an absolute disaster. Didn't want to be in my body anymore. I was drinking all the time. And I was destroying my relationship with my wife and my son.
Tell me how that early environment shaped your decision to become a paramedic.
My parents were raised in alcoholic and abusive homes. And like my mom definitely got rid of the alcoholism.
When did you first notice those symptoms of undiagnosed anxiety or ADHD?
I would say back in elementary school. When we grow up in an environment that is a little bit fear-inducing, our neural pathways don't actually have the ability to connect with the dopamine pathway. So these pathways get stunted with trauma, and it leads basically to a life of addiction.
Is it normal for your body feeling like it's craving it?
Yeah, it's a drug.
Welcome to Rosabel Unscripted, the podcast where authenticity meets real life stories. I'm your host, Rosabel Zohfeld, and in each episode, I dive into unscripted conversations about personal growth, life challenges, and the experiences that shaped us. From heart-to-heart chats with inspiring guests to raw moments of self-discovery, I am here to share stories that connect us all. Whether you're seeking motivation, healing, or simply a dose of real talk, you are in the right place. So get comfortable, tune in, and join me on this journey of transformation, empowerment, and meaningful conversations. This is Rosabel Unscripted. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Life Unscripted podcast. Well, let me just tell you, I have rebranded a bit, not a whole lot. Basically, I just removed the life for my name. So now we call it Rosabel Unscripted podcast. Not a big difference, right? Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, whatever you find yourself on this day. I'm your host, Rosabel Zohfeld, and today we're going to be diving into a topic that literally helped save my guest's life, the power of conscious breathing. Now, before I begin, I want to thank you all for your ongoing support. Thank you so much. Today, I am thrilled to welcome Chris Piva to the show. Hi, Chris. How are you today?
Good. How are you, Rosabel?
I'm doing great. It's an honor to have you here. Really is.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. You are a former paramedic in Muskoka. Did I say it right?
Muskoka. Yeah. Yeah, you got it right.
Ontario, right?
Yes.
And you were diagnosed with PTSD in 2012.
Yep, that's right.
Now, Chris, let me say something. Let me pause there. And I'm not afraid to say it. I was diagnosed with PTSD myself, and this was 2022. But you were diagnosed after struggling with addiction, anxiety, and suicidal ideation, correct?
Uh-huh.
And you discover breathwork as a life-saving intervention.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? I just happened to discover breathwork within a month ago.
Congratulations.
Yes, and I just started a few things here and there. So
Very cool.
Excited to talk about this. So you are a registered yoga teacher, coach?
Yes.
That is awesome. So tell me more about it. Tell me all about this.
So if I can rewind, and then I'll give kind of an idea of how I got here. So my wife and I, we met in college in the paramedic program, graduated, moved up to Muskoka. We both got jobs. And in 2000, so that was 2008, she got diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, and I had no idea what happened to my wife. So I kind of watched her go to therapy and start to grow, but it took a long time, like years. So 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And in that time, we raised our child. We had a boy that was born soon after my wife was diagnosed. And I saw the shift in her, and I was like, what happened to my wife? Like, she was perfect before, and then this night just changed everything about her. So she has always been kind of a really deep seeker, and she loves to do research. So she started to dig into what post-traumatic stress disorder is, and she started to get answers. So her being open and willing, she said, you know what, I'm going to give this yoga thing a try. So in 2017, she said, I'm going to be signing up for this yoga teacher training program. It's 200 hours. I'm going to go give it a shot. And I was at that point. So 4 years later, after she had went off in 2008, I was diagnosed with PTSD, and it was after a really yucky call. And I struggled with trying to like regulate my mood. My anxiety was off the charts. I couldn't sleep. I was irritable and angry. And so she started to see these changes in me, but knew all the answers that got her well. And then she just basically watched me turn into this mess. And I didn't know how to get myself better. So with this male ego, I was like, I'm fine. I don't have emotions, nor do I know how to like manage them. And once she signed up to this yoga teacher training program, I saw like really big changes in her mood, her personality, her diet. Everything started to kind of line up for her. And after watching her for a couple of years, I was like, I want that. That looks really good. So I signed up for this yoga teacher training program, the same one she did, 19. And the first part of each yoga practice in the morning was 30 minutes of breath work. They call it pranayama. And that was the first time I'd ever felt kind of in my body without having to take an exterior chemical, whether it be alcohol, pharmaceutical, or cannabis. And I was like, okay, there's something magical here. And I had thought that I'd lost my paramedic self, like all that knowledge I had gathered. I thought it was just trash now that I couldn't work on the ambulance anymore. But I actually used this new breath work, the techniques that I've learned, as well as the physiology that I learned about, what our respiratory system does and our nervous system. And I put them together, and then I just started sharing online, and I got scooped up by a company. They're called Cadence Health and Wellness. It's a veteran-owned rehab in Newmarket, Ontario. It's a husband and wife. And they said, Chris, will you come and teach breath work to our members that are coming through? So I started working one-on-one with these veterans, teaching them these breathing techniques that help me dissolve anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, alcoholism, pharmaceuticals, cannabis. And then I kept on going with things that I wanted to get rid of. And I always tell people it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done, rather than like working as a paramedic. There was like a thankless job, but working one-on-one with a veteran or a first responder and seeing a shift in them immediately and saying, like, I want this for myself. This is the first time I've ever felt calm, where my shoulders feel relaxed, or I don't feel that big tension of fire in my chest. And I'm like, phenomenal. It's here and it's free all the time. So that's where I'm at right now.
Wow. I can fully attest to what you are saying. When you were saying there was a shift immediate, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to be like, really, let me tell you why. Because like I mentioned earlier, I discovered breath work literally about a month ago. And how I discovered it was this way. Well, a little bit about me. I'm a nurse practitioner now, but prior to becoming a nurse practitioner, I was a nurse, and I work in the ER, in the emergency department. And then unfortunately, I also bring some, childhood trauma and top of that, and all the work that we do as first responders, right? Anybody who works in it. So again, the PTSD model, when, I don't know now, but people used to think PTSD was only for veterans, right? For anybody who was at war, but anyone can have PTSD. And we'll probably talk a little bit more about that. Anyway, so about breath work, I would say about a month ago, I had a moment, and this actually happened at work because there was a lot of things going on, and I literally just sat in my desk, and it's like you said, somebody flipped a switch on me, and I just couldn't contain myself. I wanted to cry. I needed to talk to someone. I went through that moment. What happened to me? I was just perfectly fine. I was normal. So I think it was the next day I started doing the work, and let me tell you, within 24 hours, 48 hours, I was like, I could see the improvement. And my supervisor, which I kind of shared with her, is like, hey, this has happened to me. I don't know what's going on. I was so scared, meaning like scared because, again, you're fine. And then suddenly you have all this, like, what's happening? And so anyways, just to kind of give you a little, so I can attest that breath work, it's like literally like a miracle, right? So you're writing a book, is that correct?
So I did write a book, and
Oh, you did?
yeah, so it's called Breathe, and I think it's like the
Okay.
subtitle is How to Transform Your Life One Breath at a Time. It's available on Amazon. And that's basically like I started journaling from like, as soon as I became aware of this breath thing, I just basically put it all on paper and started making posts. That's how I got that like job at Cadence, was they noticed these posts, and then I put it all in a book. So it's kind of like my story, and then how to heal yourself. Like
That is beautiful.
Like, and it's all natural modalities. There's nothing based on the medical model of the West right now. to rewind, 2016, when I was at my worst, my wife had said, do you want to go and do a program together? And it was this equine therapy program called Can Praxis out in Alberta. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Sure. Like, we were almost to the point of divorce. I was an absolute disaster. Didn't want to be in my body anymore. I was drinking all the time and I was destroying my relationship with my wife and my son. So I was like, all right, let's do it. So it was 5 days. It's fully funded by private donations for first responders, but for veterans, it's funded by VAC, so Veterans Affairs Canada. And it's a retired veteran or a retired military member, Steve Critchley, and he brings you out onto this ranch, and basically the horses act like a mirror. So whatever you're putting out, they reflect back to you. And it helped me bring awareness to the energy that I was putting out into the world and how it was so destructive and negative. And there was certain exercises during that 5-day program that really changed my life in a big way, helped us be better communicators in our relationship. That trickled down into our son. And now anybody that I communicate with, I'm more efficient and emotionally attuned communicator rather than this reactive kind of destructive person that I used to be. So I don't have a lot of money. I wish I did. Maybe it'll come someday, but I want to give back to this program that gave me so much. So I was like, this book process isn't too bad. I'm like, people really value and respect first responders and veterans for their service. And I wondered if I could gather stories from that community, package it in a book, put it on Amazon, and let people buy it. And all the proceeds will go directly back to Can Praxis, to that equine therapy program out in Alberta. So right now I'm gathering stories from veterans and first responders that are positive in nature. So it's like the good acts of humanity that you've seen in your career, the big transformations that you've made, like somebody could write about breath work or meditation or Reiki, whatever they've learned that's really helped them manage their symptoms. And then how, if they are, giving back to the community now that maybe helped them.
That is awesome. That is
Well,
such a great thing. Yeah, so starting with, again, sharing. This is my motto here, a community. I'm in the same way. I'm starting this from scratch. I have my job as a nurse practitioner. I'm not rich, but I mean, and when we say rich, we're meaning monetarily, right? But I feel rich in so many other ways. Like you said, you feel now even healthier than before you discover these techniques, perhaps, not just physically, but emotionally. And then we have our families. That is also beautiful, You still have your wife, you have your son, you're making a positive impact in so many others. To me, that right there is success. That's what I call success, right? Let's talk a little bit about your beginnings. How about that? Tell me how that early environment shaped your decision to become a paramedic, perhaps.
So I didn't know about this until I was probably 36 years old, when I was sitting in front of a psychologist. And it was the very first session that I had with her. She was already my third psychologist. And she said, Chris, how was your childhood? And I said, oh, it was fantastic. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. She always provided warm meals, packed lunches, clean clothes. My dad worked his absolute ass off at a steel company in Hamilton and was able to provide financially. And when she started to kind of unpack this, 2 years into our sessions, she said, how are you feeling right now? And I said, fine. I'm feeling fine. I feel good. And she's like, Chris, those actually aren't feelings. So she pulled out this thing, and it's a feelings wheel, and it has all the feelings on this wheel. And she got me to practice to tap into how I actually felt in my body, in my mind, how my energy or my mood was. And she said, do you remember feeling that way as a child? And I'm like, no, I didn't have the ability to identify what I was feeling other than fear or happy. And she said that is a lot of the past generations is, if you look at history, when war enters a community, it's fear-based and then it's survival. So nobody really has that extra capacity to love unconditionally and support and have emotional attunement and say, how are you feeling right now? What can I do for you? And just sit and hold you while you have these messy emotions. So it gets handed down generation after generation. So my parents were raised in alcoholic and abusive homes. My parents, fortunately, they removed the physical abuse, and like my mom definitely got rid of the alcoholism, and I was in this environment and I perceived it as normal. So like to think back of an example, like if I was really sad, there were certain things that I didn't feel comfortable with coming forward to my parents, because the answer I would get is like, it's better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all. Or like, you have nothing to cry about, or I'll give you something to cry about, or I didn't feel a thing. And it was just like, it was the answer that I didn't need. I needed to be like, okay, Chris, like you're hurting right now. What can I do for you? How can I be here and support you emotionally? So it wasn't necessarily like this harsh environment that I grew up in. It was beautiful and loving in so many ways. It was just lacking in that one little piece that I knew my emotional body needed. So it's been a challenge, and now I'm working on giving that to my son now that I am aware of it. And it's actually incredible to see like a change in our relationship, even with my wife and I now. Like there's more of that emotional capacity for each other.
Another thing I was going to mention, it is important to go back and to review our past, to be able to extract, like you said, to be able to analyze and see how these things that happened earlier in our life actually have shaped our present. But my question to you is, when did you first notice those symptoms of undiagnosed anxiety or ADHD that perhaps began to impact your ability to connect emotionally?
I would say back in elementary school. So you just touched on ADHD. So I've learned that when we grow up in an environment that is a little bit fear inducing, our neural pathways don't actually have the ability to like connect with the dopamine pathway. So these pathways get stunted with trauma, and it leads basically to a life of addiction. While I was a little kid, I really had a hard time focusing and concentrating in class. My mind was elsewhere all the time, reliving things that were happening. And I would often get called out and said, Chris, are you even here? And I'd be like, whoa, like, yeah, I am now. And I'd just be totally lost in the day. And my outlet was riding. So I used to ride my bike and my dirt bike, and we lived on the Bruce Trail. It's this trail that has the escarpment. So there's like a cliff, and the trail is really narrow and it's all rocky and rooted. And I used to drive really fast on there with my bike and my dirt bike. And it was the adrenaline that was producing the dopamine that made me feel regulated and focused in the present moment. And that was my drug of choice until I learned about alcohol and cannabis and pharmaceuticals. So for years, I had always sought to do adrenaline inducing things, drive my car crazy, drive my dirt bike like a madman, or my bike down crazy things to get that kind of thrill or that shock factor. And it was wild when I became aware of it. And it was this guy, Dr. Gabor Mateo to Vancouver, that really is like the trauma doctor. And I learned about him through my psychologist. And she said, Chris, you got to read these books. Like they're going to resonate with you. And they did. And I found out like at like 36 around that same time, my psychologist was like, how was elementary school for you? I'm like, it was horrible. How was high school? Horrible. How was college? Horrible. Like I barely passed because I couldn't sit down and read a book. And like looking back on that now, I just am like, wow, man, I'm so proud of myself for developing those tools, those survival mechanisms. But now that I am in that safe space, I no longer need them.
That is awesome. I found journaling at a very early age. That's one of my coping mechanisms, writing a lot. I wrote and still do it today. Talking about ADHD, right? It was 2022. I was, again, at work. It seems like I lived at work. And so something has happened and I was like, I'm not able to concentrate. Is it overwhelmed? I don't know. Maybe I should go be checked out for ADHD. So I took it upon myself to have a psychological evaluation. So I went and did the whole thing. I was like, okay. Because I was thinking, I'm thinking ADHD. The psychologist comes in and like, no, you don't have the ADHD. You have PTSD. And I'm like, what? I'm like, yeah, I knew there was some trauma. Well, it kind of doesn't, but I'm like, what do I do with this diagnosis? It was like, okay. So I was diagnosed with PTSD, which, I mean, it didn't surprise me because so much trauma in so many ways. So, but I've been able to cope. And now the newfound breath work, I think is going to be even greater.
Let's say like you're just sitting on your front yard and a dump truck comes and backs up and dumps a whole pile of manure. You're like, what the hell is this? What do you do with that? So when we're in the victim mode, we suffer all of that manure, which is the trauma that got dumped on us. But as soon as we shift into this survivor and we shift into that growth mindset, now we can say, whoa, I have all this manure. I'm going to start some gardens. So you start wheelbarrowing each load back into your backyard. You make these beautiful gardens. You plant some seeds. You start to grow, and now you can harvest fruits, vegetables, all this kind of beautiful fruits or flowers, whatever you choose. And that's the post-traumatic growth that comes after the trauma.
And talking about the PTSD, when you received your diagnosis in 2012, what was going through your mind? What you thought about?
Well, it was almost like a dream state. So I didn't think it was real. And they were completely new feelings. It was like my brain had got hijacked and somebody else was running the show upstairs. And I was like, I would do things and I was like, this is not like me at all. And I'd question it. So there was this like observer that was in there that knew something was kind of off. But there was like a part of me that was like, okay, my wife has like worked her way through this. So it's teaching me compassion, but I'm still this victim that is suffering this new kind of like the new chemicals that are running through my body and the shifts in my brain or the different changes in my brain. So struggled for a really long time, and it was everybody's fault. It wasn't my own for a long time.
And let me tell you, because one of the things I'm looking forward to manage now is what I call the shadow response. So automatic. This happens to me very often. Like I get hyper focused on something, and I'm like this, and somebody just stands in front of me for whatever reason, and I immediately just jump. It's this big jump. It's a constant thing. It's a constant reaction. It used to be kind of funny because one of the things I used to do, let's say I have my laptop, and then people will come in, and I immediately closed it. And so I was feeling a little conscious about it because I'm thinking people are thinking I'm watching something or whatever, doing something wrong. It's not that. I don't know why, Or like my husband told me at night, I will like jump and it's this weirdest thing. One of those was actually I remember this one. I'll tell you real quick. This happened when I was 14 years old. My mom heard me that I was, I don't know, getting up or screaming or whatever. I guess it wasn't where she couldn't wake me up or something. So what she did is she actually lay on kind of like on the floor, kind of like just to kind of watch me what I was doing or something. And in one of those moments, I jump. And let me tell you, I remember I was dreaming like I was flying. And we had like a hallway that will communicate directly to a balcony. And I don't know why the door was open. Had my mom not been there and grabbed me by the leg, I literally end up in the balcony like this, like I almost, and I drag her. It's the craziest thing.
Wow.
I mean, have you ever experienced something crazy like that?
Well, when my wife was first going through it, like a lot of nights, I would say like maybe 10 that I can remember for sure. And she still does it a little bit, like that body still remembers the trauma, but she'll get up in a night terror and run with like our whole duvet, our covers down the hall. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? So now I've actually, with practice, like she's actually helped me train myself, is that when she does sit up and like scream or whatever, I just put my hand on her gently and I say, you're okay. You're okay. You're safe. You're in our room. Like you can just lay down, go back to bed.
That's
and
good.
She's like, okay.
That's
okay.
good.
And then she just lays back down. And then we talk about it in the morning. And there's usually a reason, like, okay, she's like, yeah, yesterday I had a stressful day. This event happened. And what it does is it basically like, if you picture sediment on the bottom of a glass, you just stir that up with an event that happens in the day, and then your body tries to process it at night.
What is it? The name of that book?
Keeps us.
The body keeps the trauma. So In simple terms, for listeners who might never heard of conscious breathing, and I know you probably touch a little bit on this, can you explain why breath work has such a profound effect on the nervous system? You probably touch a little bit on it.
So, since human beings, we love stories, the best way to learn this is through a story. So, the first story that I always share with people, like a new patient or a client, is I'll say, let's say you and I, we go out and buy a puppy. You buy your puppy, I buy mine. We show up at a park. We start chatting. 30 minutes go by. We're sitting at a picnic table and I say, where's your puppy? You're like, I don't know. Your puppy wandered off. So now you're scanning for your puppy. Oh, it's over there. It's chasing after a squirrel and it ran across the road and almost got ran over. All these crazy things that a puppy does because it naturally is curious and wants to wander. So I say, the next day, let's do something different. Let's go to the pet store. We'll buy a leash and a collar. We'll show up at the park. 30 minutes go by. We're having a great conversation. Where's your puppy? You look down and you say, it's at the end of the leash. Like, okay, beautiful. So the puppy is our mind and the leash is our breath. So any time that our mind is tethered to our breath, our puppy-like mind doesn't have the ability to wander and create that chaos. So anxiety or depression, whether it goes back into the past and stirs up those emotions or it gets anxious about what's going to happen tomorrow or 20 years from now, it can't do it when your body's in alignment with each breath. So that's one really cool story that I always share. And so another piece of breath work is we have like our nose. And if you look at your nose, you have a right side and a left side. So the right side is your gas pedal. The left side is your brake. So if I just breathe in my right side, I plug in my left, that's going to stimulate my fight or flight based on how our neural pathways are wired. And if I breathe out my left nostril in and out, that's going to do my brake pedal. That's going to stimulate that parasympathetic, rest and digest, lower heart rate, lower blood pressure. So our lungs, we have, if you do like a horizontal cross section, you have upper lobe and lower lobes. So when we breathe just shallow, we have baroreceptors. They measure pressure, like barometric pressure in the atmosphere. We have them that measure pressure in our lungs. So when we breathe shallow, our lungs, these baroreceptors send a message to our brain. They say, whoa, there's low pressure down here. We need to raise it. So it counterbalances and raises heart rate, raises blood pressure. Opposite's the same with if we take a deep breath, those receptors, they say, whoa, there's high pressure down here. We need to do the opposite. Drops heart rate, drops blood pressure. So each day we take between 17 and 21,000 breaths on average if we breathe between 12 and 16 breaths a minute. And are they shallow? Odds are if we're stressed, they are. If we're relaxed, we're deep breathing, we're taking less breaths per minute, we're like less than 17,000 breaths per minute. And now all of a sudden you've been walking that puppy on a leash all day. You're like happy as can be. No issues. Life is great.
That's awesome. And Chris, you are not longer a paramedic, right?
Yeah, I got medically retired in 2020.
And how was it like that transition from your profession to becoming a registered yoga teacher and breath coach?
Yeah, so when we go to school to be paramedics, and I think there's a lot of similarities with fire, police, maybe even nursing and military, is you begin to identify with a job. So like if I worked at McDonald's as a career, like would I go around wearing a McDonald's uniform when I was off duty or like put a McDonald's sticker on the back of my car and say, hey, you know what, I work at McDonald's. So yet we do it as firefighters or police or paramedics or nurses. I'm a nurse or veteran, like they have the license plate sticker. So we really are heavily identified with that job. And when we're no longer able to do that job, either mentally or physically, there's an ego death. There's an identity crisis. What am I now that I'm not this job title? And I know I struggled with it huge. So now that I look at it and I have this awareness, it started as a little kid where I would always rush in and help. So if my mom or dad asked for help, I'd help my dad change something with an engine on a snowmobile in the garage, or I'd help my mom do dishes or take out garbage or recycling, carry the laundry. I was always just putting my stuff over here and then I'd rush in and say, yeah, sure. So that little helper identity started really early, and that's how I got love. I was a helper and I was validated. Oh, Chris is so good. He always helps. So found out I could do this as a job and get paid for it. I was like, I'm in. And then when that ended, I was like, what am I now? So my psychologist said, like, she goes, Chris, you're not your job. She's like, you could work as a Walmart greeter and still have that same value as a father and a husband and a family member and a neighbor. She's like, don't let this job identify and control who you are or who you're not. And there's like an ego death. There's a lot of fear because how am I going to provide for my family now that I can't work at this capacity anymore? I've lost a whole circle. So there's like a brotherhood or a sisterhood that's now been severed because they have their own judgments and biases. This guy's injured, can't talk to him anymore because we might get it just like, I don't know, the cooties or the plague or a leper, something like that. So you're kind of all by yourself. So you have this busy, busy mind, lots of trauma, and now you're laying on the couch all by yourself. You've lost your community. People don't understand. They can't talk to you about it because the West is so conditioned to like avoid emotions and pretend and put on a fake face. So you really have this period of isolation where you're like, holy fuck. And it's like, it's the manure on the driveway. It is the greatest invitation you'll ever get to turn inward, but it's one of those most difficult journeys to go from like your head to your heart. But when you do, all of a sudden that post-traumatic growth really starts to kind of grow exponentially and you really start to see the beauty in life and simply being. Like looking at it, the leaves of a tree, like studying them or watching a little bumblebee pollinate flowers. Like that's phenomenal.
Yes, I can relate to being in the medical field, how what you're saying about identifying with our jobs. But recently, since I started my podcast and talking to people, I think it will be an easier transition if in the future I decide to leave the profession. Maybe, maybe not, because we never know, right? Talking back, breathwork, can you share a story perhaps about someone without revealing any specific or private details, perhaps that somebody who used breathwork, who you would say they completely turned their life around?
So I have actually a bunch, which is really cool.
That's
So
good.
the most recent one, I absolutely love this guy. He's incredible. And we really had like this strong connection. And when I first started working with him, I was like, I don't know about this guy. Like I was kind of like nervous and it was just, he was guarded as well. But then as soon as I started to share more about myself, my journey, that vulnerability piece, it kind of dropped his barrier. And he struggled with like drugs and alcohol and came into rehab and had tried a bunch of other programs in the past. And like, I think 10 or 15, like a fair bit of like therapy, rehab, but nothing seemed to be working for him. And he was just missing a piece. And he's like, told me this. He's like, I was just missing this thing. So I taught him this one breath. It's called Tummo, Tummo, and it's absolutely phenomenal. So what it does is it basically activates the cerebrospinal fluid in your spine and it electrically charges it and it drives it up to your pineal gland, which is a phenomenal little gland. And it actually activates your endocannabinoid system and produces DMT, dimethyltryptamine, this crazy hallucinogenic. They call it the spirit molecule. And I told him about this. I give him all the background. That was basically the Coles Notes version. And he tried it and he just kind of like sat back and was like, what the fuck just happened to me? And what it was it was a similar high to the drug of choice without taking anything external. It was produced from within. And we have that ability to keep on producing it over and over and over again. So this guy's been clean and sober, I want to say like half a year now. And he's just recently on the journey, but absolutely has like a zest for life. Got a new place now. Is like really, really loving life. And he was like a Canadian veteran.
Let me ask you this. Does the techniques that you have shared here so far, can I find those on your book?
Yeah. Yeah, I wrote about it in the book. Yeah. And
Because I am definitely going to read your book.
Amazing. So I put videos out on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok.
Okay.
And it all is demonstrations of these breathing techniques. But I could show you, like we could do 10 breaths right now and just see what you feel like.
Let's do it.
Okay, so some precautions. You can feel dizzy or lightheaded. So don't do this if you're like standing or driving or in a body of water. Those are like hard stops. So make sure you're sitting in a chair that's supported. So if you do kind of drift off, you're not going to like fall on the floor or anything. So what happens is we're going to exhale with our chin down, and we're going to gently inhale through our nose as we lift our chin to the sky. So what's that doing is it's exercising and flexing and extending our spinal column, which is that cerebrospinal fluid. So it sloshes up and down. So it's going to produce a lot of energy like an ocean tide. And then it bathes this pineal gland. So we'll do 10 breaths and then like give your honest, unbiased feedback and say, what did that feel like? And a cool thing about this is it's kind of a stimulant. So if you think of somebody that has ADHD, myself included, I think you mentioned that you did have it as well, or no?
PTSD.
Diagnosed? Yeah. Okay.
No, I don't think. Yeah, no ADHD.
Yeah. So with people that knowingly have ADHD, like when we drink coffee, it mellows me out. But when my wife drinks coffee, she gets like energized. So this is a stimulant, just like you would treat somebody with ADHD with Ritalin. This breath is kind of a stimulant. So it just depends on what you want out of a breath. So just know that going in. Okay, so
That's perfect.
We'll do 10 breaths. And on our last inhale, we're going to put our head all the way up. We're going to hold our lungs nice and full. We're going to push our belly out and hold that for like 10 or 15 seconds. Hold your breath, hold that belly pushed out, and then let it go. And that's when you'll feel like it's like a chemical flood. Exhale, chin down. What's that? Exhale, chin down. Inhale through your nose as you raise your chin. Exhale, chin down. Inhale, raise your chin. Nice full breaths. Really move that air. Exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. 2 more. Inhale, exhale. So last one, inhale, hold your breath, push your belly out, keep your chin up, hold your breath, push, 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 and then let it go as you exhale. So you might feel a little bit tingly in your fingers and toes. That's a pH shift. You change the voltage of your blood. You're now more alkaline. You're dissolving inflammation. And when your body is feeling, your mind isn't thinking. So it brings you into your body.
Whoa.
So what did you notice?
That was amazing. Awesome. I feel so relaxed. But we got a podcast to finish.
So usually I teach that so that one round was 10 breaths. I usually teach 15 breaths and then we do 4 times. So it builds on that feeling. But just as you would train for a marathon, you wouldn't go and run 40 miles or 22 miles, whatever it is, right away. You would walk around the block for a week. Then you would walk around twice for the next week. So it's all about just listening to your body and doing what your body needs. So that was a good dose for you. So you don't need more. But once your body starts to get used to it, you can start giving it more and more.
Yay, I feel so, my God. Did you say it feels like drugs?
Yes, you just produced drugs. You activated your endocannabinoid system.
I'm just in a state of dude, it feels awesome. And I promise I'm not making it up. I mean, you're right. I'm still feeling that, I still feel the tingling in my hands. It's just I'm in this, you're right. Don't do this while you're driving because I'm just oh, it feels so good.
Yeah. And it just silences the mind. All the chatter in the mind is gone for that moment.
I know. Right? I'm going to have to regain myself. I'm going to have to regroup because I know we're talking about trauma, I think, but.
So the coolest part about a human body is that we are the most sophisticated piece of electrical, mechanical, and chemical equipment walking on this planet right now. Yet nobody taught us how to access any of that technology. So it's been evolving for however many thousands of years. Yet in the last kind of 100, maybe even sooner, 200 years, there's been a killing off of this innate knowledge that resides within us.
Well, here's an idea that came to mind.
Yeah.
Since now we have this new AI technology that apparently is going to be doing our laundry and our dishes and whatever, all these menial tasks, maybe we can focus most on this technology for us and this breath work and getting ourselves better. That's just a thought, right?
It's a brilliant
Because
thought.
now people have been talking about, AI is going to rule these things. And so, okay, well, maybe we should focus on some human things, like real human needs that we
Yeah.
have. And you are so right. Wow. So, quick question. How long someone should practice? Or how long does it typically? Well, I was going to ask you, this was before we did this exercise. I was going to ask you, how long does it take for somebody to notice a shift? Well, that question has been answered literally right away.
So I do, there's so much that's coming up that I want to get out, but we're going to run out of time, which is this another human construct.
We're not going to run out of time. We can keep talking.
Oh, all right.
It's the life unscripted.
Okay, now we can party. So there's so much that's coming up and I have to learn how to funnel it. So you asked how often can somebody do this? And when I was at my worst, I was doing this breakfast, lunch, dinner, bedtime. I was doing it 4 times a day. I was doing 4 rounds at 30 breaths. So we were just doing 10. I was doing 30 breaths, take maybe a 15-minute or 15-second pause. Then I do another round. So I was doing 4 rounds 4 times a day. And that was what helped me recenter my chemistry because I was so unbalanced, but it brought me. Yeah.
Is it normal for your body feeling like it's craving it? Because right now I feel like I'm craving it. Like my body wants to do more. Is it normal to feel that way?
Yeah. It's a drug. It's my new addiction for sure.
I was just literally thinking okay, we're going to wrap up this and I'm going to be doing it.
And that is what, that veteran that I talked about, that's what he did. He said, I want to get a shirt that says Tumo. And every time I'd see him, he'd just yell Tumo. So the cool origins behind this breath was they're called Tumo monks. So in the Himalayas, there's these Tumo monks that they do this practice. And the idea is that they would dry 8 wool blankets that are soaking wet and frozen at altitude with their breath. So when we inhale and exhale, our muscles in our intercostals expand and contract, and it creates body heat in our core. That temperature change radiates, and they dry 8 wool blankets that are soaking wet. So imagine how long you'd have to do this breath to dry those blankets at -20. So you just did 10. So imagine how crazy you would feel after you did that for a couple minutes or a couple hours, and how amazing your body, your conditioning would be and your chemicals and everything would just be so blissed out all the time.
So I don't feel like Rosabel Unscripted. I feel like Rosabel on steroids right now. I can feel I was smiling, but now it's
You're blissed out.
I was just so happy.
So one of the chemicals, so if you've heard of the word ananda, have you heard that before?
I think so.
It's like a Hindi word or a Hindu word. And anandamide, it now it's they call it the bliss molecule. So it's like a neurotransmitter.
Look at me. I took my glasses off. I let my hair out.
It's basically just dissolves the stress and tension in your body. Yes. So this anandamide, this bliss molecule, is what's circulating through your bloodstream right now. Yes. It's right there. And the biggest thing that I really struggled with it at first, and then I'm it's a big game. It's a big game. So the medical industry right now is designed on maintaining people that are unhealthy. The food that we eat and the chemicals that we are filled with. But there's no doctor that I know of. There are actually a couple. Dr. Zach Bush, Bruce Lipton. They're brilliant. If you want to listen to their podcast, they're phenomenal. And they basically talk about how important the breath is in regulating your chemical system and getting off of the dependence of others. And it is so, so, so cool. Wow, it's just so, so amazing. Thank you so much for helping me feel. I was feeling okay, but now I feel amazing. It's incredible. Yeah. And the hardest part is to remember to do it. So here's a cool story. So last year we have an above ground pool in our backyard. So I pulled off the winter cover and I'm oh, so it had all ripped and separated from the edge. So I was this is a big job. So the next day I'm in there, it's I'll say it's 95 degrees Celsius or Fahrenheit. And I'm like sweating like crazy. Dogs are barking next door and I'm getting stressed because things aren't going the way I want them to work. So I'm like getting more and more frustrated. My like pressure is building and building and building. My wife comes out in the backyard and looks at me. She's like, Chris, fuck my breathing. So I sit down in the bottom of this pool, start doing these just chill breaths. Everything goes away. I finish the pool. I'm happy. It got done. But I was spiraling, but I didn't even have the awareness that I was. I was just like getting all charged. So the hardest part is to remember to remember.
Thank you so much. In fact, I was thinking I'm going to teach it to my husband.
Yeah.
I'm going to teach him. I'm going to tell him to do it.
So here's the
See what
cool
he
thing
thinks.
about this is like how it goes back to that willingness. So does your husband want it or need it? And when we force things on people, it
Yes.
sometimes repels them. So the cool part, the best way that I've found is to like share something is with somebody that's like willing. So, hey, say, hey, are you interested in learning something that I just learned about? And if he says yes, okay, there's some willingness. And then you can explain a little bit and then you can demonstrate it. Say, these are the things you might feel a little bit weird. And if you need to stop, you can. Like I used to try and force things on people and I'd scare everybody away. I was like, why is it not working? Why do they not want this? And it was just my energy. I was so strong and masculine, forcing it on everybody. And I chased them all away. But now I'm much more gentle.
Yeah. And let me say, that was going to be my next question. Like, many listeners might feel resistant or worry, like you said, that they might be either doing it wrong or do they even want to try it, right? And so, but let's say somebody's ready to try and they may still have that little apprehension. How do you encourage them to perhaps keep practicing? Let's say they did it the first time and they didn't feel, for whatever reason, I'm going to tell you, I don't know, but I'm convinced.
So you're going to have like a whole spectrum. Like you've just been given it once, you're running. You're like, okay, see you later. I'm out of here. Can't wait to do it again. Then there's people where you share it with and they're like, oh, I'll never do that again. And that's okay. This is their journey. They may take multiple lives to get to this point of learning breath work. That's okay. The people that are on the fence, I usually just say, is there any way that you could, like, if you really do want this, like, and they say, yeah, I do want this. Okay. How can you create reminders for yourself in the day to be able to tap into this practice? And they say, like, get them to think about it. And they'll be like, well, maybe I could set a timer. Great. Okay. So go on your phone. Okay. Let's do that now. So you want to set a timer? Yeah, I want to set a timer. Okay. Pull out your phone. When would you like to do this? So you always give them the power so that they're making the choice rather than you're forcing them to do it. And like my wife taught me all this stuff and I'm like, fuck, it's amazing because it works. And you just let them do all the things on their own. And you know what? They might fail. They might never do it. And that's okay. It's your kindness and compassion that they recognize. And they're like, wow, they're not judging me because I failed. Okay. I like this person. I'm going to try. I'm going to do this. And you're just, yeah, they'll come to it on their own if they really want it.
So looking back into your journey from anxiety, addiction, becoming a teacher, what is the single most important lesson that you have learned? Like if there's one thing you could tell our listeners that they could just remember today, what would that be?
It's one of my favorite things that I say to people is everything you need is already within you. It's it. It's the most basic thing, but some people hear that and they're like, yeah, whatever. I still need the fancy house, the shiny car. I need the big bank account. That's where they're at. That's okay. But everything you need is already within you. And that's like inner happiness, inner peace. And it's all about perspective too. So if you look at that simple phrase, like if what I have right now am surrounded by and what you're surrounded by, if you had that in the 1500s, you'd be a king or a queen. Running water, flush toilets, temperature control, electricity, lights. So like what we choose to suffer is our choice. I could suffer this house because I have to pay a mortgage or I have to pay a hydro bill or it's not big enough because my neighbors have a bigger house or my car's got a little bit of rust and now I need a new car. I could suffer all of that, or I could shift my perspective and say, hey, I'm grateful for everything that I have, including my health and wellness.
Chris, how can our listeners connect with you?
So on Facebook, it's just my name, Chris Piva. And then it's like a picture of a globe is the icon. Instagram, Chris Piva official. TikTok is breathe, period, with period, Chris. Breathe with Chris. And then send me a message. I'll write back. I love helping people. Like I went for a walk the other day in the park and I chatted with a lady for an hour and a half that was a retired dispatcher. And now we're hanging out. So I love connection. I think that's what the world lacks right now.
Indeed.
I want to kind of be that little bit of change that I can to just let people know that there's good people out here and they're not trying to take everything you have for their own power. And we all can lift each other up and make this world a better place. One conversation
That is
at a time.
beautiful. Yes, absolutely. And Chris, where do I find your book?
So it's on Amazon.
Title, remind me. Remind
Yeah.
me the title of your book.
So Breathe, Breathe. And then if you just go on Amazon and you type in Breathe and then my name, Chris Piva, it'll just pop right up.
Okay,
And it's,
perfect.
I think it's available. Yeah, it's in the States and Canada.
I'll definitely get it.
And it's $20.
Yeah,
so I think it's even cheaper in the state. I think it's 14 American, 20 Canadian.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Wow. Thank you so, so much. Thank you for the bottom of my heart for sharing your story, your wisdom. I mean, you have a commitment, right? To helping others. I mean, you've been helping veterans and first responders to heal. That's beautiful. And now who knows? Like I always say, who knows who's listening, right? Who's listening?
Mm.
And if they decide to, perhaps that breath work is something that they can try, and that'd be amazing. I would like to hear from those listeners out there if they find this exercise is helpful. Thank you so much. Is there anything I didn't ask you that perhaps you're like, I need to get this out there?
The one thing I always usually share when I teach people stuff is like grounding. I mentioned it, but I think you might know about it already. But it's where you like plug into the wall. You know about it?
Are you talking about the actual grounding, the ones that you plug in, that you have sheets and
Yeah.
You're talking about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I've noticed. So in like the 3 years since I've been like sharing this, there's more and more people. Like before when I first started, they're like, what? You're plugging yourself into the wall, or like standing in the grass will help your body? It was like absolute quackery that I was saying that stuff. And now every time I bring it up, there's more and more people, including yourself, that are like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I have a grounding. I have one sheet that I put in my bed and plug it into the wall.
So
it helps sleep better.
So beneficial for us, especially in the world that we're living in right now with so much frequencies. So like the earth itself is 5.8 hertz. Now you're talking 5 gigahertz. And what that does to every cell in our body is it's creating a lot of issues. And people are like having tumors in their face or their breast or their groin where they're carrying their phones. When you're grounded, it actually is a force field. It protects you from those outside frequencies. So like walking barefoot as much as you can and also being plugged in while you're sleeping, it really dissolves those risks, as well as like thins your blood, heart disease goes down, risk of stroke, better circulation, sleep improves, all these beautiful benefits. So I love that you already know about it. It's incredible.
Yes, I've been, as you can tell, I've been researching here or there, looking for ways to help cope, and it's helped tremendously. And thank you for reminding me. I'm barefooted right now, and I go in my backyard. We have grass in the front. I have a big tree in my front yard, huge. It's a oak tree, and it's about 90 to 100 years old.
Oh, beautiful.
Yes, and so we actually built a bench around it where we actually sit, and it is my custom. I try as much as possible every day after I come from, not necessarily right after I come from work, but sometime, if weather permits, I go out there and sit there. Yesterday I was out there pruning some roses, so I always try to find ways to, something simple like that,
So beautiful. Beautiful.
Yes. And I have a friend from Colombia who always remind me to hug the tree. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, people can judge you. That's okay. You know why you're doing it.
Yeah. I say that because you know how they make fun of you're hugging a tree, whatever. Well, have you heard of Austin, Texas?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I live in Austin. Keep Austin weird. There you go.
Incredible.
Well, I don't live in Austin, but close enough.
One guy, he's in Texas. Aubrey Marcus. He's a podcaster. Have you heard of him?
Okay. No, I have not. But we have Joe Rogan, who's in Texas.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's actually friends with Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan helped him get his start. But Aubrey Marcus, like I've listened to a lot of his podcasts, and the guests that he has on is how I've actually used that information and like put it to work. But yeah, Texas.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, Texas.
It is booming. It is booming. A lot of wonderful people moving this way, yes, happy to be here. I always tell, one of the things I'm not going to say necessarily I chose Texas. Perhaps it chose me. I mean, it chose us. My husband was in the military at the time, and we end up, relocated. And so we now decided to stay. And one of the things I like about the terrain, it resembles very much the area where my hometown in Colombia, like plain and the nature, the cows, the range, and that kind of stuff. So it reminds me of, so it's pretty cool.
Beautiful.
And I'm used to the heat, kind of. Yeah. So awesome. Well, great to have you here. Chris, you're welcome to come back anytime. Just let me know. We have a chat. I think we have a lot more to talk about. Don't you think?
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Let's do it. Well, thank you again.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Chris. You're welcome. If you enjoyed this episode of Rosabel Unscripted podcast, here's how you can support our show. Visit www.rosabelzohfeld.com to learn more about my work, subscribe to my newsletter, and get updates on upcoming episodes. Head over to my YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, and turn on notifications. Your subscription not only motivates me to keep creating, but also helps others discover these conversations. Share this episode with a friend or colleague. I want to invite you, yes, you listening right now, to check out my book, The Courage to Succeed, A True American Dream. It is available now on Amazon and also Barnes & Noble. This is a story of resilience, grit, and what it really means to chase your dreams, even when the odds are stacked against you. If you ever face fear, failure, or uncertainty, this book will meet you right there and remind you that courage always has a voice. Just search The Courage to Succeed, A True American Dream by Rosabel Zohfeld on Amazon, or head to the link in the show notes, because your dream is worth it and your courage can take you there.